Hey guys, now that basketball season's officially over for me, had my last game on Friday night. Tim and I met today and figured that I'd start going over first the stuff that's going to be brand new, which is the single wing stuff that I ran at Chalker the last 3 years. I'm going to start by going over formations and personnel so that we know how and where to place our players. We're going to use mainly three main formations, three base formations in our single wing package. There's some adjustments and stuff that we can get into game planning wise for all of the formations, well, mainly just the R and the L, or the razor and the laser formation, which I'll show you here in a minute. But so there's some adjustments and stuff that I won't touch on until we meet probably next week. I know we have a staff meeting coming up, so we'll touch on adjustments and stuff that we'll use game planning wise in our single wing package to get the advantage on our opponent. But mainly just want to teach you guys this entire system. I believe the way I learned it from Rick Darlington, I learned the whole system from top to bottom. He runs a single wing package and he has a spread package. So we did both at Chalker. I envision us being in the spread package a little bit more than the single wing this year, but this is a great way to control the clock. Good 4-minute drill to end the game and seal up a win. So we'll go over personnel and formations right now. So let's take a look at our base formations out of the single wing and talk a little bit about where we should put our guys and how we should personnel our guys, and we'll kind of just go from there. All right, thanks. All right, so let's first talk about who and where, how we want to personnel our single wing package. So you see here that we're unbalanced to the strength of the formation. So if we're in R, which I call razor, they would be unbalanced line to the right. So essentially we're taking our left tackle, he becomes the inside tackle. We're putting a tight end where the left tackle would be. We've got our three best backs. We've got our fastest back here, our best between the tackle runner here. This guy usually has the best vision, and then we have another guy that's pretty speedy, because this way we'll be running power and sweep, so we want to try to get to the C gap or the D gap outside. With this guy we'll be running counter back, counter sweep, and a few other plays to the left side. So we want, our best three backs are in those, the F, which is essentially the QB, the T, which is the tailback, and the U, which is, like your typical slot receiver type kid. The H, typically we find our next lineman up, or maybe, we put our next lineman up here and we put our best tight end H back, our best blocker, one-on-one blocker, kick-out blocker, somebody who might be able to release out into the flat and catch a flat ball, but somebody that could also run a route down the middle of the field, in case we want to run a couple passes out of that as well. So we always either put our next best offensive lineman there or our first or second tight end, and we would kind of play with them over here, kind of switch spots back and forth. So that's how we want to do it. On the line, we always called the backside guard the quick guard. If we're running sweep and power, he's going to be pulling to the unbalanced side of the formation. On power, he's wrapping for a linebacker. On the sweep, it's essentially like some sort of a buck sweep. He'd be more so pulling, I think, to the front side A or B gap for a linebacker that's running through, possibly. So he's probably one of our best pullers, or is our best puller. Obviously our center there, and he's really got to be able to snap the ball a couple different places, directly back to the T or directly back to the F. On the unbalanced side, we called this guy our power guard. We put someone there that was good at down blocking, but when we come back and we run counter, he's also got to be able to kick out, a defensive end, if we're running our counter scheme to the backside there. So really these two guys got to be able to pull. This guy should be a better puller, but this guy better be our second best puller. This spot here at Chalker, we always put our weakest lineman there because really all he's got to do is either block back on anything going to the weak side, counter sweep, counter trap, or, you know, if we're running sweep or power, he's really just essentially blocking down. And if there's nobody in his gap down, then he's essentially, you know, just blocking back until he gets into a linebacker or a second level defender. Our best lineman is going to be our, you know, what I call the power tackle. He's got to be a kid that can block one-on-one if we need him to, especially if we're trying to run our sweep to the strong side. We want that kid to be able to block one-on-one, you know, good reach blocker. And then when we run power, he's probably blocking down on a guy that's probably, you know, inside eye of him there. So he's got to be strong, and he's got to be able to move. He also does pull on the counter. He's the cleanup guy, so he's got to be able to move and come around. But I mean, to be able to do all those things, we always said that that's our best lineman, our best blocker. Our X receiver here, it's kind of hard to tell from my diagram, but our X receiver there should be 5 yards from the power tackle. The U should be 1 by 1 from the power tackle, you know, in a 2-point stance. We always told the H-back that we wanted him to put his outside leg on the inside leg of the power tackle. We kind of want him in that C gap area. But we can play with him game plan wise, move him in or move him out if we have to. Sometimes we moved him in to kind of be behind the power guard, so that, you know, we could get a better angle on a kick out on power, because essentially on this, I mean, the 2 main plays out of this are power and counter. You know, you've got on power, you've got 3 or 4 guys through the gap, and on counter you've got 3 or 4 guys going through the gap. So we can kind of play with him. We can motion him to the weak side stuff too, and run weak side ISO with the F. We did that a little bit, so there's a lot that we can do out of that. But that's how we want to kind of put our guys and the rationale behind it. Now let's start with formations. The first formation that we'll install, I call it Razor, but we can call it whatever we want. The guys at Garrettsville call it R, you know, R to the right, unbalanced to the right. I called it Razor, just to be different, because we actually practice with Garrettsville, so we didn't want them we didn't want to be using the same terminology. But Razor puts our unbalanced guys to the right side. So conversely, if we went Laser, which I'll draw up here in a second, Laser would be unbalanced with the X to the left. So we always flopped our 2 tackles and our tight end. We left the guards because they were our 2 best pullers, but you know, we can do whatever. The next formation we'll go to is what Rick Darlington and I called SAW, which stands for split and wide. Okay. We want to split our tailback out to the weak side. He's off the ball. I like to run power read out of this. So we would motion him a lot coming into the backfield. But if you notice, we have our next best back, our 3rd best back right here. He's wide on the same side. He's wide outside of the X, and he's also off the ball. So we could even run a power read this way, or run counter read, or we ran a little counter read with that, where we would pull the guys in our same counter scheme. So those 2 formations are where we start: the Razor and the Laser, and then the SAW, which stands for split and wide, as you see there. The left side would be Laser. I always call the left side of SAW drill. Try to keep it in the same family. You know, so drill had an L in it, so the unbalanced guys and the strength of the formation, we knew we were going to set to the left. So let me draw that up right now. So here we have the flip of Razor or R. We have L or Laser. You see unbalanced goes to the left, and then below that is what we call drill. Same formation as SAW. We still want to split out the tailback to the weak side of the formation. We're still going to make our U, our wing back, go out wide outside of the X. You see we still have our F, which could be a quarterback, and our blocking back, or our H back, tight end there in the backfield. So really just trying to open up the box a little bit with that. with that drill formation or that saw formation. We really liked motioning the U through and running ISO strong, motioning the T through and running weak side trap, which is the exact same blocking that it would be out of the formation above. So the blocking, it's really essentially, I really think it's like 8 plays. They're all blocked the same out of a couple different formations. Next formation and the last formation that I would use in the unbalanced single wing would be what I call deuce right and deuce left. So let me draw that up for you. So above would be what we call deuce right. We called it deuce right and added right to it because we want our unbalanced line to go to the right. So really, razor, saw, and deuce right are all the same for everybody except for the U and the T, essentially. The X never really moves. He's there in razor, he's there in saw, he's there in deuce. The blocking back, the H back is still in the same spot. We do move the F over. Instead of being in the strong side A gap, we put him directly behind center. The tight end stays the same. Really, the only two guys that have to know 3 different ways to line up are our 2 tailbacks, our wing back, the U, and our tailback, the T. So that's what we call deuce right. Down here, we call that deuce left, obviously. So we're just really telling the line how to line up, and we're trying to get a trips look. Rick Darlington doesn't really run this one. I got this one from Corey Parker from River Rouge in Michigan. He stays primarily in this formation, but I think this gives us an unbalanced line look with a trips to the weak side. We never had a tight end at Chalker that could release into a pass route there. But I think we'll have a kid like that. So you still have a trips look. You can motion the H, but we could still even or odd our line and use the blocking back in the protection, and we could still have a 3-by-1 look with routes, and we could still run our main spread concepts out of this formation. We found some issues with protection wise because of that unbalanced line. So a lot of times we would motion the H back. We would use him as the third or fourth guy in the route combination instead of the tight end. We'd leave the tight end in and block. So you can do a couple different things with it. But you see there's not a whole lot of difference there for the linemen. So they're not having to learn a bunch of different things and a bunch of different ways to line up. Really for them, it's essentially line up to the right or line up to the left. And there's 8 run plays, and they're all blocked the same out of this formation, out of razor, out of saw, out of laser, out of deuce. So, and drill. So, not a whole lot of change up for the line. Our skill guys should be able to learn a few more things, but we want to make it easy on the linemen. We want them to do their job and block, so we don't want them to be thinking a whole lot out there. So that's why we're going to keep it simple up front, and these formations are all going to be very similar. All right, so that's just a quick run through of where we want to put our guys and who we want to put where. And then those 3 formations are the basis of the offense. Like I said, there's some adjustments and stuff. I'm going to go over 2 adjustments. Might as well throw it on this video. I'm going to go over the over adjustment. So I'll show you that. And then there's one other adjustment, but we'll wait to add that. But really, it's just razor over. And essentially what that does is we're trying to get one guy out of the box to the strong side so we can run our power scheme. So let me draw that up for you real quick. So this is the one formational adjustment that I really like out of our razor and laser formation. I just called it razor over. I was just telling the Y that he was going over to the strong side of the formation. So pretty simple. We did that. A lot of times we'd find that we'd get a corner on our X here, and we get a guy playing the 5-yard area between the power tackle and the X. Usually they'd apex that with a linebacker or something. But when we're in this look, essentially we still, with the wing, the X, and the Y, we could roll out, sprint out protection, and we could still throw a 3-by-1 concept to this side. We were big into the sprint out game at Chalker. Our quarterbacks always threw better on the run. So this gave us a way to get the corner out there on the Y, and they would shift over maybe a little bit. When you get real good, if you can run a counter back to the nub side, it's very effective. You know, that's hard to do. But this would essentially be a way for us to run our power scheme or our sweep scheme to the strong side of the formation, maybe even run it into the boundary. But this gives us the ability to try to get one guy out of that box so that we can, you know, gain a couple yards, get a first down, maybe on 3rd and short. All right, so that's the grouping. That's the 3 formations I plan to use out of the single wing. If you have any questions, just text me and let me know. I'll go over all this again when we meet, but I figured if I did some videos and walked you through it now, we can get a head start. So come June and July, we're not learning it as coaches. We already know it. So next I'm going to go over the power series. There's a few plays in the power series. I would install the power series first out of the single wing. Then secondly, I would install the unbalanced runs out of the single wing. That would be out of the deuce and out of the drill or saw formation. So that's the place to start. You know, if we progress well enough and we think that we've got those things down, there is a spin package out of Razor and Laser that I really like. It's got 2 false key plays with the blocking back and the front side guard to keep those linebackers honest. So, you know, you run that one time early, see what they're keying. Mostly, I think they key the blocking back from what I've seen over the last 3 years. So if we send that blocking back away, we can usually hold those linebackers for a split second. So, you know, if we get good enough to run the spin series out of RNL, I'll go over the footwork and everything, but we would do that last. We'd want to install the power scheme, power series. We want to install the unbalanced spread single wing series. Then we'd want to get into our spread stuff, and then we could do the spin last if we have enough time and if we think we're progressing. So I'm going to go over the power series now. I'm actually going to use my laptop for this next video. So you know, let me know if you have questions or need me to go over anything.